Hi, I'm Chuck Cassidy, and for the last 8 years I've been building buses with my partner Ben Jackson. And in today's video we want to start from scratch. Take it back and assume that you're trying to build a bus with nothing but a bus and a gravel yard, which is where we got our start.
That's where we started.
Yeah. We're going to take you from ground zero and share with you what we think are the most essential tools you need to build a bus. No fluff, only what you need, all for maybe less than $1,000 if you're savvy enough to look around for a good deal. So stay tuned for the rest of today's episode, because not only are we going to save you money, we're going to keep you safe and help you get the results that you're hoping for, so you can be like one of those influencers you see out there. Right?
That's right.
Thanks for tuning in. Don't go anywhere. The most important tool in the shop is you. And I'm not calling you a tool. Yes, I am. You have to protect yourself. You don't want to do any work dangerously. It's just not worth doing. So we're going to start talking about PPE, personal protective equipment. Ben, what are your go-tos when you want to work safe?
I think first point of PPE is eye protection.
Oh, yeah.
You only got 2 eyes and they're really fragile.
You really want them both.
So almost no matter what you're doing on the bus, just leave them on.
Mm-hmm.
Get you a couple sets so that when you scratch them up or drop them in the gravel, get a fresh pair.
No reason not to wear them.
I think after that, we're looking at gloves. Protect your fingers.
Mm-hmm.
There's no tool on here that is any good to you if you don't have fingers to use it.
You're the softest thing in the shop by far.
Yes.
What do you got down there?
I got some really old, worn out gloves that I've been using for a long time.
Are those firm grips?
I'm not sure who makes these, but they do have ratings on them.
They do have ratings, and these are rated for cut protection, I believe.
Yes. And
that's a nice thing to have on your gloves. I personally use gloves that are not as heavy duty as that. And it's not because I think they're better, that's my style. And I think the most important thing about PPE, use what is comfortable and works for you so that you'll use it. Because if your stuff is if you got those big bulky gloves and then you don't wear them, that's way worse than having just maybe flimsier gloves that you wear all the time.
Absolutely.
I would say. How about ear protection? What do we got?
Just some over ears. These are great. Easy on, easy off.
No excuses.
No excuses. Around here, we all really like these earbud.
Yeah. That's a professional level option there. A little more expensive, but these have the Bluetooth, so you can make your phone calls and jam the tunes. If you come into the shop any given day, pretty much all of us are existing in our own audio ecosystem. We're all wearing that because everything here is loud. Yeah. And it's cumulative too, by the way. If you're in a loud environment all the time, it's gonna wear out your ears. This is something I'm admittedly probably the worst at, wearing a mask. And we really like these. These are RZ masks, GVS masks. Miller sells them, but here they are. I like these because they're low profile. The filters are actually replaceable, and they have a valve on them, so when you exhale quickly, the air gets out fast. It doesn't come out the same way it comes in. I think that's good. It helps keep the air from escaping around your nose and fogging up your safety glasses.
It might be worth mentioning too for all you bearded people out there. If you're going to be doing something really gnarly and you know it's coming up, and you've got like 2 days of sanding a bus or a lot of grinding on your on your metal floor of the bus, trim that beard down because it's not going to work very well. If you've got that much airflow around the seal.
Absolutely. That's a good tip. Especially if like vapors are what you're concerned about. Like dust, it's less of a deal. but like those organic vapors in like paints and thinners and spray foam chemicals, those are a problem.
Spray foam.
Spray foam's the gnarliest for sure, and for that you actually want to use a respirator.
Yeah.
I think that's all the PPE that you need if you're going to do it. I don't know if this counts as PPE, but everybody here uses a headlight, and we've opted for ones with rechargeable batteries because we use them a bunch. But if you're under a bus or working inside of a cabinet,
often lighting is pretty difficult inside of a bus while you're working. A lot of tight spaces, a lot of dark corners.
Yeah.
So having a good headlight is going to save you the headache
and keep you safe, so you don't drill through your finger accidentally. Obviously. So let's just imagine it's a work day. So we're all suited up. We're ready to play ball. Put me in coach. The first thing you're gonna do is probably go take a measurement on something.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
I think so.
And this is one area where the more options you have, I think the more accuracy you're gonna get.
Absolutely.
So these are our top picks, must-haves, stuff we use every day. First one is tape. Whatever you like. I'm a DeWalt tape guy. It's the only DeWalt stuff I like. That's not totally true, but it's what I go for.
I'm a Stanley Fat Max tape.
Mm-hmm.
I have one out here.
We don't have one out here. But whatever you like. 25 feet is plenty for a bus. Most of the time we're carrying 16s on our belts. Especially if you don't have a big butt, it pull your pants down. I don't know about that problem, but some people do. The next thing, a straight edge.
Yep.
I would say is the next logical one. The best $7 you can spend.
I use it every day.
Yeah.
Always got to draw a straight line someplace.
Yep.
There's not many straight lines that come on a stock school bus.
But we try to put a lot in them.
We do. Yeah.
Yeah, big fan of that one. And then some squares. Nothing square on a bus, but we're still always striving for it.
Yeah, I mean,
So we got a speed square here. It is what it says it is. It's a speed square. Mm-hmm. If you're not familiar with these, I mean, they're about $7 or $8. Cheaper if you get a plastic one. It's just a great way to, you can hold it on the edge of your sheet goods and cut or draw or cut a perpendicular line. If you're cutting 1x or 2x material, it's good for that. And then also if you're just checking a corner, seeing if you have that square, it's fantastic. Do you want to talk about this one?
We also have this square.
Oh, framing square.
Which may be redundant, but I would definitely suggest, I wouldn't try building anything on a bus without having access to this.
Yeah.
It's essentially the same thing as that, just much larger. So especially if you're dealing with plywood goods,
yeah.
You're doing your walls, paneling, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna want a nice, long, straight edge coming off of your square side.
Yeah. I think you're most qualified to talk about this one too.
So this is a combination square. Yeah, you can do all sorts of things with this. What can you do with this?
Well, I really like the combination square because you can use it to set depths on things. So you can move that slide around and that will tell you a depth to set a blade to. It could tell you, you can use it for setting up a table saw, although a table saw did not make our list for this video. Mm-hmm. I like it for that reason.
Also comes apart, so if you need a small rule, you're
doubles as a ruler.
Dealing with little parts, making, I don't know, little blocks.
And these are all so cheap, I think it's worth having one of each. And they don't take up hardly any space. Wouldn't you say?
Not much.
Yeah. Coming up on the cutting and marking, so those are all the measuring and squaring devices that we like to use. But they're not the only types of tools we use when it comes to measuring, marking, and checking for square and getting our layouts correct. I think the next thing we should talk about is maybe the string and the chalk line.
Sure.
It's very similar tools. So we got a spool of string here, and I love using the string method in the bus. I mean, I've built some pretty elaborate string setups. But basically, you can use this to establish straight lines and planes in a bus when you don't have good reference points anywhere.
Right.
So oftentimes, if I'm trying to build a wall that I want to go, across the bus from outside wall to outside wall, I will set this up either on the actual hat channels where they go across or on some reference point that I can measure on each side. I'll throw the string up, and then I know that whatever wall I'm going to put there, if it's all touching this string or if all of the studs I'm installing are touching the string, I know that they're in plane across the bus. And there really isn't any other way to get there, at least not quickly. And
not by measure.
Not by measure, yeah. So this is great because you can throw it up. I would usually do one at the top, one at the bottom, and if all your studs are touching both, they're all in plane, and they're all going to line up and be straight to themselves. Constantly using string around here.
One of the simplest tools on the bench.
Yeah.
Very useful.
Maybe the simplest.
It might be.
Might be. The string's older brother.
Yep. Is a string with chalk. Commonly known as a chalk line.
Chalk line, yeah.
Yep.
So we use this a ton. We do use it interior to the bus sometimes, laying out our floor plans. It's nice if you're going to be installing like your flooring. You want to start with a totally straight edge somewhere, and we never count on the walls to be straight, ever. So we'll snap a line and use that. We also love it for establishing placement of things on the roof. And that could be anything from our racking for solar panels, lining up our max air vent fans, really anything that you are trying to get, either parallel or centered is nice. We've used it sometimes for marking out rivet holes, although now we use templates for that. But
use it for establishing your initial strapping.
Oh yeah, and when we do our framing on the sides, which we call strapping, it gives you a straight line to follow. All of these tools are super inexpensive, and if you only use them once, I would say it's probably worth it.
Totally worth it.
Yeah. So.
And a lot of people will just have these sort of tools laying around their garage. If you know somebody who's got some tools.
Yeah, totally.
They got these.
They probably got these. So I think the dividers.
Yes.
So inevitably, if you're going to put a wall in your bus, it's going to come up against the curve.
You got a curve.
You got a curve. You're going to encounter curves, or you're going to have a reason to otherwise scribe something to fit an irregular surface. Mm-hmm. It's inevitable. I mean, every piece is irregular on the bus, despite our best attempts. So this is a divider. You want to explain what you're using that for? It's also called a compass and a scribe. They're all essentially the same tool.
Basically the same tool. So say you've got a wall panel that's coming up against the side of your bus with a curve, and your plywood is square. Okay, so we're going to cut the corner off of that, try to guess what our curve is going to be.
Get a little close.
Yeah. And it doesn't fit really at all. So we're going to take this divider, and we're going to find our biggest gap, and we are going to follow the curve of the ceiling with the point while the pencil side traces that line. And with that method, you come back and cut the line, and then hopefully your piece fits.
You get closer every time. The idea with this guy is that whatever the size of the gap is that you're trying to close is at least as wide as you want your dividers set. And as you get very close, eventually you can get rid of the divider and just use the distance from the center of the pencil lead to the outside.
Sure.
But that tool is awesome. Probably one of the oldest tools out there.
It's very old.
That and string and something straight. Awesome marking tool and super cheap. And that's how you can get perfectly fit curve pieces. You can use it for cutting and scribing any type of sheet good. If you're cutting your flooring pieces to fit things, you can use that. Really any time that you need to make something fit in irregular shape.
Right. Which will happen frequently. Like we said,
every time.
There's nothing square and nothing straight.
No, there isn't.
Plumb level doesn't exist.
Yeah, which, some of you might wonder why we don't have one of these, but we actually had to import this level from another shop because,
it gets used a lot.
There is, nothing in your bus is level. Even if you park it on a level surface, like we have a bus right here, it's parked on a semi-level surface, but it still slopes to the front. So throw your level away. It's not going to help you at all. I don't think it's worth even considering using a level. It's just an expensive straight edge at this point. All right, so let's say we've got our first piece, measured. We know what we're looking for. We know what size it needs to be.
We'll call it a piece of subfloor.
Let's call it a piece of subfloor, if you will.
That's what we often do first.
Yep. So the tools that we like to use for cutting, and let's just say cutting easy shapes out of wood.
Sure.
I think the first simplest tool, it's got to be the circular saw, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Circular saw, skill saw, worm drive. This one's would you call this a sidewinder? Direct drive. The motor's right on the back. They all do the same thing, which is spin a blade so you can cut a piece of wood.
Lots of options.
Lots of options with that tool, but I mean, that's just the quickest, cleanest way to make straight cuts. End of story. Especially cheap goods. So.
But how are you cutting that? What are you cutting on?
Oh my gosh. Well, that's a good point, Ben.
I mean, you're in a gravel yard. What are you just?
You're on a gravel yard next to your bus. You're not cutting in rocks.
No.
You want a nice set of sawhorses. We're spoiled because these are a set of really nice hand-cut and joined sawhorses that Ben made. And we've made several pairs of these for the shop. These are incredible. They're insanely strong, very stable. You don't need anything this fancy. This is just what we had to show you. But everybody knows what sawhorses are for. It's worth spending the money. I know it's not a fun thing to spend the money on, but it's worth spending the money on a good pair of sawhorses.
Yeah, you need to get it off the ground.
Yeah, and it needs to be stable so that you can cut safely and confidently. Otherwise, it's just going to be a mess.
It gets rowdy really quick.
Yeah, you could be losing fingers. So definitely invest in a good pair of horses. Okay, so we're ready to make a cut. We've got our circular saw. Let's say we made our rough cut, but there's a part on the board that needs a more detailed approach.
Sure.
Maybe it's more complicated.
Yeah, you gotta make a little notch out for your fuel fill.
A notch out, and then maybe a curve because it's the back of the bus, and it's got a curve there.
Let's start with the notch. What do you use?
If we're notching,
you got a square notch you gotta cut.
A square notch I gotta cut. I might reach for this guy.
All right.
Is it too early?
No.
Okay. We call this, we got nicknames for this around here, but this is an oscillating multi-tool. This is a Bosch, and it's got a little blade at the end that wiggles extremely fast. And what's awesome about this, it's great for just nipping a little off of something, but also if something's already been built and you have to get in there flush, this blade can rest right up against something and make a cut line that's flush with that. Super handy. It's really handy in trim work. It's handy if you built something over something that you shouldn't have. Guilty of that.
It'll save your butt.
It'll save your butt. And we had a little dialogue about whether or not this should be included, but I think for professionals, we're like, it's cheating. But if you're an amateur, you're gonna make a mistake. And even we make mistakes. And this is definitely the quickest way out of a lot of mistakes that you might make.
I'd say though, if you were still on the horses,
we're still on the horse,
I would grab the jigsaw.
Yeah.
This is an excellent tool for coming up and making nice square cuts. You can do that with the circular saw, but then you end up overcutting a little bit, and depending on what you're building, you could be compromising the strength of the material you're using.
Or if you've got to cut, say, a hole in your subfloor, you can just drill a hole, stick the blade of the jigsaw in there, cut your hole
and that does great because you can do round stuff with that as well.
That's right. Do round stuff.
Do round stuff.
Which I guess, as I said, drill. We should probably talk about that. I think we've covered. It's interesting in this whole lineup. We only have 3 tools explicitly for cutting. Interesting. But we have like 12 for measuring.
4. for cutting.
4 for
This is
we
also
count
for
we
cutting.
count the angle grinder. So there's no way you're gonna build a bus without a drill, and I really think you should have a driver too.
Absolutely.
I mean, you could do it with just a drill, but just changing the bits out alone would drive you crazy, because oftentimes you're drilling a hole and then you're driving a fastener into it. So, you know, I'm team red and black, which is Milwaukee. Ben is team green.
You think it's green? I think it's blue.
Blue? Okay. Ben is team Bosch. It doesn't really matter too much what team you pick. I mean, in general, the higher end stuff is going to be Bosch, Milwaukee, DeWalt, probably. Makita. But, you know, if you're an amateur, you're not planning on making a living on this, I don't know if there's a reason to spend big bucks on the high end, top dollar things. But I will say, if you're looking at these tools, a lot of times they come in a bundle. And, you know, you can go out and get a cordless set that's going to be a drill, a driver, maybe a circular saw, a multi-tool, maybe an angle grinder all in one, and that's going to save you hundreds of dollars. They're all going to use the same battery, which really, when you pick out what brand, you're kind of deciding what brand of battery you're going to be using. Because the batteries are, I mean, I've probably got $1,500 just in batteries. And I'm not going to abandon those and change ship.
Right.
Abandon ship, change brands now. But I absolutely encourage you to get a drill and a driver at the very, very bare minimum. Now, these are tools that have tools that go with them.
That's true.
And they're bits. You got your drill bits and your driver bits. And Ben is a real connoisseur of bits. What do you got going on over there, Ben?
Well, I'll be honest. I have this really amazing set that has every bit that you could imagine.
Like every possible bit.
All the safety bits. A lot of stuff that, as you can see, this is a really clean box because I don't actually reach for these very often.
That's the
really fun.
That's the like, oh crap, this is a weird size that I don't have.
Right.
And that's got you covered. So it's nice to have a set like that. That's not even that expensive, really.
It wasn't.
But it's a little bulky.
Yeah.
And impractical.
I would say, just go to your big box store or whatever and get you one of these,
all-in-ones.
All-in-ones. It's got a little bit of everything in there. Chances.
A little bit of everything.
Yeah. Chances are that it'll be missing one bit that you're gonna need at some point. But that's gonna be the case no matter what.
Yeah. Most common bits on a Skoolie, I'm gonna say, Phillips number 3.
Yep.
Super common, especially on a Bluebird. Phillips number 2.
Yep.
And on Thomas buses, square number 2s, which look like Phillips, but if you use the square head, you're going to get a lot better bite. So if you're trying to demo the ceiling panels on a Thomas, you want that square bit.
Yeah. And that's mostly you're gonna be needing that for demolition.
Yeah, we don't use any square drive fasteners really.
Yeah.
But then on building,
We use Torx head.
it's pretty much all Torx, which I've maybe stripped 10 in my life. They hardly ever strip.
They last a long time.
Big into the Torx bits, but then still a lot of the finish screws are Phillips. Phillips number 2, I would say.
I guess going along with demo,
Yeah.
there will be a lot of hex head bolts,
Right.
especially for pulling seats.
Yep.
I mean, miscellaneous pieces of steel.
Mm-hmm.
All that's going to be done with hex head bolts. So I really recommend these little Makita kits that you can get at the Home Depot or wherever. Impact rated, and it comes with a little 1/4 inch hex bit that fits
You
really
can stick it in your impact driver,
nicely in your impact driver.
and then you can put a socket right on the end of that.
You're gonna also want a manual classic.
Yep.
What do you call this?
I would call that a ratchet,
Yeah.
probably, or a wrench. And we'll cover
Socket
that.
driver?
We'll cover that in a second when we get onto the mechanics tools that you'll need. But since we're on bits, let's talk drill bits.
Drill bits.
I think it's worth it, don't you, to just go ahead and buy a drill bit index?
Buy an index.
Index is what you would call a kit of bits.
We really like these.
Yeah, these are Clee line bits. You can get them at Home Depot. That's actually probably the cheapest place to get them, I would guess. You can also get them on Amazon if you want.
They last a long time. They're great.
Yep, they do.
You'll use a lot of them.
Okay, so after our regular sized drill bits, invaluable, we've got this. And these are some of the most handy tools, I think, in the kit. Because they can do things that will really save your butt.
Yeah, so what are we talking? When are we using these things?
So sometimes you'll have to drill a hole through thick things. Say your entire subfloor and insulation and in the metal floor pan of the bus. But also sometimes you have to drill in situations where the hole you're trying to drill is far away from the space you can fit your drill in.
Mm-hmm.
And in those situations, I credit Ben for coming up with this clever solution.
Somebody else actually invented the long drill bit.
Yeah.
But
what do we got?
yeah, we got an assortment here. In the shop we keep 1/2 inch down to 1/8 inch, step to 16ths. And I would say probably the time that we use them the most is when we're drilling through the floor.
Yeah.
You've got a propane pass through, you've got gray water pass through, and you can measure on the floor after crawling around underneath the bus, but before you come in with a large hole, start with the small drill bit.
See where you end up.
Drill all the way through, leave the bit in there, crawl under the bus, see where you're coming out. Because you might think you're someplace that you're not.
You might be surprised. Yeah.
So,
these are called aircraft bits.
yeah. These are all 12 inches long.
Mm-hmm.
You could just search long drill bit.
Wow. Profound.
Yeah.
Invariably, when we're using a drill bit like that, unless we're using them for drilling rivet holes, which that's more advanced and something we're not covering in this video. Usually we're piloting for what is everybody's least favorite, but maybe perhaps the most exciting, yeah, drill attachment, which is the almighty hole saw. And here is just a small selection of the hole saws we have. I just pulled these out of our drawers. We've got probably $500 worth of just dull hole saws, and maybe $1,000 worth of still good ones. If you don't know, to the uninitiated, this is how you make perfectly round holes in an assortment of materials from wood all the way to steel. And we use a lot of Milwaukee. They're okay. The best ones are made by Lennox, but they are hard to find. Wouldn't you say those are the best so far?
We had some Starrett ones. They were like bear something. Yeah. They lasted forever.
Bear shit.
I don't know where to get them.
And I'm sure they're expensive because they're Starrett, but you can't build a bus without these. You're gonna use these.
You're gonna need it
at some point in your build. They're expensive. It's well worth it. Buy the kit.
Yeah.
In my opinion. And if you can, they have different style of pilot bits which screw into the various size hole saws. Get the ones that have a little stop or some engagement mechanism that is not just the threads alone. If you get the kind that just thread in there, as you're drilling, those threads will tighten up so tight that sometimes they seize on there and you can't get them off. And we have some hole saws that become permanently attached to their pilot bits despite, some really serious attempts by us to get them off. You have to have these.
And you'll probably wear through them.
And you'll wear through them. And it's worth mentioning, be careful when you're drilling because they'll bite and cause the whole drill to kick. And our friend Ty, who worked here until last week, was drilling and he almost knocked himself out when the hole saw bit into the metal, bound up, and then spun his drill right into his head. And that battery pack,
it's heavy.
It's heavy. It'll knock you out. Oh, but that's a great tool.
Great tool.
So we've covered our...
Some people are saying maybe
the best tool. One of the best tools. Yeah. A lot of people are saying it might be the best tool. So we covered our spinning tools, our spinning implements, and the bits that attach to them. Oh, no we didn't. This one talk about tools that will get you out of a bind. The right angle attachment. So the right angle attachment does what you might think it does. So say I've got my impact gun here, and it sends the force outward. This guy, you stick it in there, and then you can put your bit in here, and look, it goes downward. So it's really useful if you're working inside of cabinets. I mean, you can just imagine all the circumstances where you can't fit your entire tool into the area around the hole, and you can use this to drive the fastener. You can even get some drill bits that will fit into these too. The hex collared hex shank.
You can drill around corners.
You can drill around corners. Look, I'm doing it. That's an awesome tool.
I mean, if you really want to get fancy, you can get 2 of those.
Yeah. Drill back on yourself. You got to be careful though. That's an awesome tool. Okay, fellas. I'm gonna just have to stop you there, Ben and Charlie of the past. We just really got to rambling, didn't we? I mean, if you can't tell, Ben and I can talk about tools forever. So instead, what I'm gonna do is stop it here, cut this video in 2, and we'll pick it up again, same time, same place next week, where we'll wrap up our videos about best, most important tools you'll need to build a bus, starting with nothing, spending only $1,000, and still getting yourself a good set of tools that'll get you into the bus. Thanks for watching, thanks for making it this far, and thank you for supporting the channel. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button so you can catch the next video, which will be the second part of this one, when it comes out every Sunday. Appreciate you being here. Keep up the good work.